Alright, Steam version it is. Hello there! I think it's time for a classic game again. A game that has been laying abandoned for a long time. A game that Valve holds the copyright to, but is not selling on Steam, nor anywhere else. A game that is currently available as a free mod for Half-Life on ModDB. A game that I was inspired to play again after listening to an Orden Ogan album. I am talking about Half-Life Gunman Chronicles. Oh yeah, and that's the song that inspired me. Gunman Chronicles, or Half-Life Gunman Chronicles, where the prefix Half-Life exists, I'll explain that later, is a game with a very unique style, one that you rarely see. In simple words, cowboys in space. Without spoiling too much, you are part of the Gunmen, a galactic fighting force trying to destroy the alien infestation known as the Xenomes. And in order to do that, you blast to bits everyone and everything in your way. With a diverse cast of friends and foes, this game is anything but monotonous. Friends becoming foes, enemies who become friends, or rather allies due to circumstance, all included. On one planet you are fighting dinosaurs, while on the next one you are fighting aliens and worker drones going rogue, controlled by a menacing AI that will give you a run for your money over the course of the entire game.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am the mainframe in control in this facility, and you are dead!
This is one of the few games of that era that still manage to surprise me today. Especially when coming from Half-Life, where you're used to your friendly scientists.
Help! The drones! They've turned against us! Thank you. You've helped to save my Xenome.
These are just two examples from early in the game. Expect much more. Added on top, some interesting character development and dry humor. You are lured into a trap and your enemies try to feed you to some friendly alligators. And when that doesn't work, they introduce Plan B.
Let's feed him to the crocs. I'm changing my bet. He killed him. Oh, he's gone. We got another one. Oh, crap. Let's just blow him up.
Apart from the various enemies that shine through a seemingly pretty bright AI with various attack patterns, the weapons themselves are, to many people, the biggest star of the game. While the selection of guns is not as big as in many other games, the versatility of them all is all the more plentiful. Every firearm can be modified, which was brand new for the time. Not only alternative fire modes by pressing the second mouse button, no, a full modification menu for each weapon. From timed fuses for your rocket launcher to a range of chemicals which you can mix at your discretion and spray on the enemy with all sorts of different effects. One thing that always irritated me though, you never have to reload your guns, but most of them are energy weapons anyways. Adding to these weapons, we got some heavy ordnance. Gunman Chronicles features a lengthy vehicle section which was, despite minor flaws due to the engine, a really fun diversion from the regular gameplay and mixes things up significantly. Unlike Half-Life, Gunman Chronicles does utilize in-game cutscenes to tell the story. Though rarely used, they are utilized in important moments, for example to highlight transitions between different planets. Nonetheless, the majority of important events are seen through your own eyes. The story of this game is nothing short of an old, slightly trashy but incredibly fun early 90s science fiction movie. The game begins with a render sequence setting up events taking place several years before the actual game. The gunmen land on a planet to investigate a signal sent from a science installation, as they are suddenly being attacked by unknown alien creatures. The team retreats, but not all manage to flee. The general leading the expedition manages to start his ship and give air cover to his fleeing men, But then the ship is being grabbed by one gigantic alien creature and pulled into the depth of its lair. These events set up a classic revenge plot that you are randomly thrown into. The typical the right man at the right place and time situation. All this with the Wild West look paired with retro science fiction. It's just, well, is it trashy? Oh yeah, it is. But man, it's fun. I enjoyed it maybe a tiny bit too much. In fact, I liked it so much I got our fox, the ESCalation channel mascot, Gunmanified. Being quite honest, I like it better than the original cover, but I guess I am biased. By the way, it is a mix of the US cover and EU cover, the one I got as a kid. Which brings us back to the beginning of the video. In releases outside of the United States, they really tried to hammer home the fact that the game ran on the Half-Life engine and wanted to associate it with Half-Life in order to drive up sales. In all actuality, the game doesn't have much in common with Half-Life apart from the engine. A German gaming magazine called it one of the first modern indie games, and depending on what your kind of metric for that is, you can actually call it one. The game started as a Quake multiplayer mod, and over time, with the switching to the Quake II engine and then to the Gold Source engine, it evolved into a full standalone game with an entire single-player campaign added. And all this was largely the work of one guy. Even after the staff grew and they got picked up by a developer, the majority of the development still took place at home and was shared via FTP service. So I guess you really can call it an indie game, or at least it was developed in a style that you would see indie games being developed in. Another thing that made Gunman special is the art style of the game, especially the texture work. With the clashing style of Wild West aesthetics, steampunk and retro-futurism, this game manages to create a dense atmosphere. Being a science fiction game that is now 20 years old, it is an interesting example of a type of science fiction that you rarely see nowadays. Of course, with a game released in the year 2000, you've gotta cut it some slack in the visual department. It cannot look as great as most modern titles, but once you give it a try, it sucks you in with a very special charm. Every texture in this game was handcrafted. How do I mean handcrafted? Everything you see was physically molded out of clay, then carefully painted and photographed. A completely different approach to the usual texture creation process. Even the sky textures are painted by hand, and so are the models and weapons. Even 3D models were fully sculpted out of clay. This interesting style results in unique visuals that set themselves apart from any other game. Sadly, Gunman Chronicles never managed to step outside of the shadow of its bigger brother Half-Life. That in all actuality is not related to it, even though the marketing would suggest otherwise. In the end, Gunman Chronicles is a fairly good game that is worth playing even today if you enjoy old school shooters. Did you enjoy the original Half-Life and would like to play something similar but fresh and new? Well, should you play this game? Yes, most definitely. It is worth your time. I am glad that Gunman evolved into a mainly single-player game, because the multiplayer is just too similar to many other games of that era. Even if the setting is novel, the gameplay mechanics are not. Nonetheless, good fun. It is worth playing even today if you enjoy old-school games. That goes for the multiplayer and especially the single-player campaign. Did you enjoy the original Half-Life and would like to play something similar but different? Should you play this game? Yes, most definitely. It is worth your time. So, you decided you want to play the game. Tough luck, the game isn't sold anymore. And Valve, despite owning the rights to it, is not offering the game on Steam. The game is basically abandonware, so you either have to go find a used copy, or owners of Half-Life can go and download the entire game as a mod from ModDB. I am not certain about the legality of it, but it has been there for ages, so Valve seems to be indifferent to it. There are a few differences between the actual store-bought copy of Gunman Chronicles and the mod version. They are, however, minor and do not impair the gameplay experience. The mod version can even be played in high resolutions without tinkering around with a hex editor, so that's a positive. Besides the video resolution, the differences between these games are as follows. The intro sequence is missing from the mod version, but you can check that out on YouTube. The mod version comes with the Gunman demo included. This includes the first chapter and a different intro. You start the game by waking up in a bed, instead of the retail version's Half-Life-esque tram ride. Possibly the worst difference, the main menu is missing the spinny galaxy in the mod version, since the modern main menu does not support animated backgrounds. That's a big loss there. I like the spinny thing. But apart from that, you can enjoy the full game basically for free if you own a copy of Half-Life. Oh, by the way, talking about the ModDB page, there is a version of Gunman up there that you can play with upscaled textures. It does look significantly better. However, you cannot easily install it in your Half-Life folder. It needs to be running on the Xash 3D engine. The download does come with instructions on how to set up everything. It's not too hard, so you can try that out for yourself. As we are slowly coming to an end for today, well, oh boy, do we have a lot of cut content of this game. So, if there's interest in that, tell me in the comment section, I might dedicate a video entirely to that. We got so much stuff, even playable levels. But that's for the future. For now, I want to say, I hope you enjoyed the video, because I certainly enjoyed making it. So the game gets my seal of approval and recommendation for fans of old-school shooters. At this point, a special thanks to our supporters on Patreon, who of course got to see this video first. If you like our stuff and would like to support us as well, check the Patreon link in the video description down below. And if you just want to see more of this content, don't forget to subscribe and give us a like, as that's always a great motivation to keep us going. So, see you guys next time. Until then, have a nice day, and as always, goodbye and guten Tag.